morning and welcome to another episode of Ask the Healthcare Advocate Live. Missed you last week because I was dealing with exactly the topic that we are discussing today, which is when you have a blurry quasi-emergency situation of somebody that you're taking care of, which I think is one of the most difficult situations to navigate because there aren't any clear protocols that you can follow. And as a person who's caring for somebody else, especially a parent, this can be incredibly stressful because you are hovering between, am I doing too much or am I doing too little? And you aren't ever sure, sometimes until months afterward, whether or not you sort of got your validation that the actions you took or didn't take were the appropriate ones. So I had a similar situation where I had a child who needed to go to the emergency room in what was an acute situation that then turned into a slightly more mild chronic issue. So now you're at the point where you have a new situation. Let's say a pain. Your child has a pain and it's new. They haven't had that before, but it's not overwhelming, meaning they're still functioning, they're still eating, they're still sleeping, but they're not able to go around their normal routine. I had a client who contacted me last week with a very similar situation of a child who's having bad headaches, who has not been able to go to school, still eating, still sleeping, taking pain medication that's sort of helping, but not really. So what do you do now? Meaning the child isn't at the level where you need to go to the emergency room. It's not that acute. The child is God forbid, passed out or is very apathetic, is not eating, is not drinking. So they're still functioning, but they're not able to go around their normal daily life. Obviously, something is bothering them. So when a child is sick, let's say they have a fever or they have a stomach virus, it's very clear. You know what you need to do. You need to stay at home. You need to rest. You need to give liquids. Fevers are normal. I will say that again, as I say all the time, fevers are for sure normal. And they can go on for up to 5 days, sometimes even 7 days, and they need to be cared for. In our time of COVID, obviously for a child who, or anybody who has any kind of, at this point, almost any symptom, good to just do a COVID check to get it out of the, to take it off the list of possibilities. But now you have a child, maybe he's got a post-COVID symptom. If for a child who's had COVID like this other client, maybe he has another virus, of which there are many. So when do you know whether it's acute enough to go or not? And I will bring you, and even another conundrum is that when you go in a sort of a quasi-fuzzy emergency situation, you're not only battling your own inner debate, you also have to battle, in a sense, the system, because the system doesn't quite know what to do and how to handle these quasi-emergency situations that aren't clear, like a broken arm or stitches, or a severe pain that is very clearly something like appendicitis. So if you even if you get a referral, and you need to get a referral to the emergency room, and you get there, they're not going to be able to handle you because it's not super acute. So then you're bounced back to the emergency care in the community. So now you have to deal with the community system, which sometimes works well, meaning you find a specialist, either a pediatrician or an orthopedist or another, doctor who deals with children somehow, who has the experience, who can see something that's a little bit, as I say, blurry. But that's really, unfortunately, the luck of the draw. So now you sort of have to put yourself at the whim of the system, present your case to a physician, and hope that they'll see the signs as you do and suggest to you what are the possible follow-up situations. Now, that's always the question. What are the possible follow-up situations? So the first thing that one can do when one is in a quasi-emergency situation is get a full-on blood test, because there's a lot that can be seen in a blood test that can give you indications whether things have to be investigated further or not. So your first call is always just to get a referral from your family doctor, or if it's a child, a pediatrician, to do a CBC, which is a general, blood count, liver functions, kidney functions. Even if the doctor feels it's a bit overkill, if you as a parent thinking and knowing your child and feeling like something is going on that is not of the normal and your child is not able to participate in these daily activities, then usually a family doctor can be prompted to give to give a blood test without so much issue, and that's the first way to go. Once you see the blood test, if there's any indications there, then it'll have a much clearer path about what you have to take. Other options at your disposal that are not so intervening are ultrasounds. For sure, appendicitis masks itself many times, especially in younger children. It's often very hard to diagnose. Just because a child doesn't have tenderness in the area of the appendix, doesn't have a fever, does not necessarily mean it's not appendicitis. So an ultrasound can be very helpful in that. Excuse me. Also, if the child is complaining of strange stomach aches, an ultrasound can often be a good way to sort of get more information and move forward with that. And then I always encourage people that to make an appointment with a specialist who's private in the area of that you seem to be having the quasi emergency in, because therefore that person has more time, a bit more experience, more open-mindedness sometimes to be able to approach your issue with a wider lens. And that is what can be very, very important. So to recap, first of all, quasi-emergencies, blurry emergencies are difficult. They are challenging. And I'm just giving everybody reassurance that you have to trust yourself. You have to sort of keep an even head. You have to keep going forward as long as you feel that there is something that you don't have an answer to quite. But also to remember that there's so much that we don't understand about the body, and that often children are sick in different ways, and that often things do resolve themselves. And we might not get answers as to what happened, but they do resolve themselves. So if the situation continues and it's not resolving itself, then that is indeed something else that we need to take into account. So, as I was in the middle of my own review, so be kind to yourself, trust your gut, follow steps, start with blood tests, then go to ultrasound. Don't have to push right high for the CT or the MRI unless things aren't becoming more resolved. Speak to a private specialist. Use that opportunity if you have the mashlim, the supplementary insurance of the kupa. Get an appointment with a specialist, speak to them, voice your concerns, and keep going round if you feel that you're not getting answers and the problem persists. So thank you so much for joining me almost every Sunday morning. I usually hold between 8:30 and 9, Ask the Healthcare Advocate Live. Please, as always, send me your questions, comments. Feel free to private message me, as many of you do, if you've got specific issues. And I hope you join us here every Sunday morning.